I shouldn't have stepped inside that house. Something felt wrong the moment she smiled at me. And when I saw the basement door slightly open, I knew I shouldn't be there. She seemed normal at first. Friendly. Almost too welcoming. I had no reason to refuse her invitation. But the moment I crossed that doorway, something inside me told me I'd just made a mistake. I met her on a quiet afternoon, the kind of day where everything feels too still, like the world is holding its breath. She approached me casually, as if we had known each other for years, smiling in a way that felt warm, but somehow rehearsed. There was nothing obviously wrong about her, nothing that would make someone step back or feel alarmed. And yet, something about her presence lingered in my mind longer than it should have. She started talking about her house, mentioning how she had just moved in and didn't know many people around. Her tone was soft, inviting, almost comforting. When she asked if I wanted to come in for a moment, it didn't sound strange at all. In fact, it felt like a normal, everyday interaction. But there was a small hesitation inside me. Something subtle, easy to ignore. And that's exactly what I did. The moment I stepped inside, the air felt different. Not colder, not warmer, just heavier. The kind of heaviness you can't explain, but you feel it pressing slightly against your chest. The house was clean, organized, almost too perfect. Everything seemed carefully placed, like a scene arranged for someone to observe. And that's when the first thought crossed my mind. Not fear, but awareness. She walked ahead of me, guiding me through the living room, talking about random things, pointing at objects, making small comments that I barely registered. I wasn't really listening anymore. My attention had shifted. Not to her, but to the environment. There was something off about the silence. No distant noise. No neighbors. No movement outside. Just stillness. And then I saw it. At the end of the hallway, a door. Slightly open. Not enough to see inside. But enough to notice it wasn't fully closed. Something about that door felt different from everything else in the house. It wasn't just a door. Felt wrong. Like it didn't belong in that place. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But the more I looked away, the more aware I became of it. And deep down, without knowing why, I felt like whatever was behind that door was the reason I shouldn't have come inside. I didn't know it yet, but that door was already watching me. I tried to keep my eyes away from that door, but it was like my attention kept being pulled back to it, almost against my will. She continued speaking, her voice soft and controlled, as if nothing was out of place. But there was something strange about the way she moved. Too precise, too calm, like she was aware of every step I took, every glance I made. It didn't feel natural. Felt calculated. I nodded at something she said, though I had no idea what she was talking about anymore. My mind was somewhere else, locked onto that partially open door at the end of the hallway. The silence in the house started to feel louder, heavier, like it was pressing into my ears. No background noise, no distant sounds, just her voice. And the quiet. "Do you want something to drink?" she asked suddenly, turning to face me with that same composed smile. There was nothing threatening about her tone, but something in me hesitated again. Small pause. Just a second. But she noticed. Could tell she noticed. I forced a smile and said yes. As she walked toward the kitchen, I remained where I was, standing in the middle of the room, pretending to look around casually. But the moment she disappeared from my line of sight, turned, slowly, quietly, and I looked directly at the door. It hadn't moved. Still slightly open. Still silent. But now, it felt closer. Not physically, but mentally. Like the more I focused on it, the more it demanded my attention. I told myself I was overreacting. That it was just a basement door. Every house has one. Nothing unusual about that. But then another thought slipped in. Quiet, almost like a whisper in the back of my mind. If it's nothing, why is it open? I took a step forward. Just one. The floor didn't creak. The air didn't change. Nothing obvious happened. And yet, felt something shift. A subtle awareness. like I had crossed an invisible line without realizing it. I glanced quickly toward the kitchen. I could still hear her moving around, the sound of a glass, maybe a cabinet opening. She was distracted, or pretending to be. I took another step, and then another. Each step felt heavier than the last, like my body was moving forward while something inside me was pulling back. But curiosity had already taken control. And curiosity is dangerous when you're in the wrong place. Now I was close enough to see more. The darkness behind the door wasn't just shadow. It was deeper than that. Felt dense. Like the light didn't reach far enough to reveal what was beyond the first few inches. And that's when I noticed something else. The door wasn't just open. It looked like it had been opened recently. Someone had been down there. Not long ago. And for some reason, it felt like they were still there. I froze for a moment, my eyes fixed on the narrow gap between the door and the frame. My breathing slowed, not intentionally. It just happened. Like my body instinctively knew that making noise, even the smallest sound, could be a mistake. The house felt even quieter now, like the silence itself was listening. I leaned slightly closer, just enough to see if I could catch any detail beyond the darkness. My eyes struggled to adjust, trying to make sense of shapes that weren't fully visible. First, nothing. Just blackness, stillness, emptiness. But then, something shifted. I blinked, unsure if I had imagined it. Subtle movement. Not fast. Not obvious. Just enough to make me question what I saw. My heart started beating a little faster, but not in panic. Not yet. It was more like anticipation. The kind you feel right before something reveals itself. I stepped even closer. The air near the door felt colder. Not freezing, but noticeably different from the rest of the house. And there was a faint smell. Something I couldn't immediately recognize. Not strong. Not overwhelming. But present. Ill. Like something that had been sealed away for too long. I reached out slowly. My fingers hovered just inches from the door. I hesitated. For a second, I thought about stepping back. Pretending I never came this close. Waiting for her to come back and just leaving. But that thought didn't last long. Because something else replaced it. Question. What's down there? And once that question settles in your mind, it's hard to ignore. My fingers touched the edge of the door. Cold. Pushed it slightly. Just a little more. The gap widened. The darkness stretched. And then, heard it. Sound. Subtle. But unmistakable. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the wind. Came from the basement. The sound didn't repeat. At least, not immediately. I stood there, completely still, my hand still resting on the door. My eyes locked into the darkness below. My mind tried to rationalize it, to find something normal, something harmless that could explain what I had just heard. With settling, maybe something falling. Houses make noises all the time. But this didn't feel like that. It was too deliberate, too controlled. Like it wasn't just a sound. Like it was a reaction. I slowly leaned forward, just enough to angle my head toward the opening, trying to listen more carefully. My heartbeat had changed now. It was no longer calm or curious. It had rhythm, tension, anticipation, waiting. And that's when I noticed something else. The silence wasn't empty anymore. Felt occupied. There's a difference between a quiet place and a place where something is choosing not to make noise. And standing there just inches from that door, I knew which one it was. I pulled my hand back instinctively, my fingers curling slightly as if I had touched something I wasn't supposed to. A subtle wave of discomfort moved through me, starting in my chest and spreading outward. My body was reacting before my mind could catch up. And then, I heard her voice. "Did you find the door interesting?" Came from behind me. Too close. Turned quickly. She was standing there, holding a glass, watching me. Her expression hadn't changed much. But something about her eyes felt different now. Not welcoming. Not warm. Aware. I forced a small laugh, stepping away from the door casually, like I hadn't been doing anything unusual. I was just looking around, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded slowly, her gaze still fixed on me, like she was measuring something I couldn't see. It's just the basement, she said. The way she said it didn't make it feel simple at all. She handed me the glass, her fingers brushing mine briefly. Cold. Colder than before. You don't need to go down there, she added softly. Not an explanation. Suggestion. Or maybe a warning. I took a sip of the drink, mostly to give myself something to do, something normal. But my attention was still divided. Part of me was with her. But the other part was still at that door. Still listening. Still wondering. She turned away and walked back toward the living room, expecting me to follow. And I did. Slowly. But as I moved away from the hallway, felt it again. That same awareness. Stronger this time. Like something behind me wasn't done. I tried to ignore it. But deep down, I knew something in that basement had noticed me. I sat down across from her, trying to act normal, trying to convince myself that everything I had just felt was nothing more than my imagination. The living room was quiet, organized, almost too perfect. She sat calmly, watching me with a soft expression, as if nothing unusual had happened. But now, I was paying attention in a different way. Every movement, every pause, every glance. There was something subtle about her behavior that I hadn't noticed before. She wasn't just sitting there. She was observing, carefully, quietly, like she was waiting for something. Or maybe, watching to see what I would do next. I took another sip from the glass she had given me, more out of reflex than anything else. Taste was normal. Water maybe with something added. I couldn't quite tell. But there was a faint aftertaste. Not strong enough to alarm me. Just enough to make me aware of it. You look uncomfortable, she said suddenly. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Not concern. Not curiosity. Something sharper. I forced a smile again, shaking my head slightly. No, I'm fine, I replied. But she didn't respond immediately. She just looked at me, holding eye contact a little longer than necessary. And in that moment, I realized something that made my chest tighten slightly. She knew. Not everything, but enough. Enough to understand that I had noticed something. Enough to know that I was no longer completely at ease. She leaned back slowly, her posture relaxed, almost casual. But it didn't feel natural anymore. Felt like control. Like she had shifted from host to something else entirely. You don't have to stay if you don't want to, she said. That should have felt like relief. An opportunity to leave. But the way she said it didn't feel like permission. Felt like a test. And suddenly, leaving didn't seem simple anymore. Because now, it wasn't just about me wanting to go. It was about whether she wanted me to leave. A quiet tension filled the room, thick enough to feel. I placed the glass down slowly, my fingers steady, even though my thoughts weren't. My mind was running through possibilities, trying to understand what was happening without jumping to conclusions. But one thought kept returning. Over and over again. If everything is normal, why does it feel like I'm not supposed to leave? She stood up, slowly, and for a split second, my body reacted before my mind did. A subtle tension in my shoulders. Slight shift in posture. Instinct. She noticed. Of course she noticed. I'll be right back, she said, turning toward the hallway again. Toward the same hallway. Toward the door. I didn't move. Just listened. Her footsteps faded slightly as she walked away. But this time I paid closer attention. Because now I wasn't just hearing her steps. I was listening for something else. And then, I heard it again. This time. It wasn't just one sound. There was something else. Moving down there. I didn't realize I was holding my breath. Until I slowly let it out. The house felt different now. Not just quiet but tense. Like something had shifted the moment she walked away. The air seemed heavier again, pressing against my chest in a way that made it harder to relax, harder to think clearly. I stayed seated for a few seconds, staring at nothing, trying to convince myself to remain calm. This wasn't a situation. Not yet. Nothing had happened. Nothing concrete. Just feelings. Just impressions. But then, I heard it again. Clearer this time. Not just a sound, but movement. Low. Controlled. Uneven. Coming from below. My eyes moved instinctively toward the hallway, toward the direction she had gone. I expected to hear her voice, her footsteps, anything that would anchor me back to reality. But there was nothing. No movement from her. No sound from above. Only from below. That's when something inside me changed. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It wasn't even fear in the usual sense. It was awareness. The kind that tells you, you're no longer in control of the situation. I stood up slowly, my movements quiet, almost automatic. My mind wasn't fully deciding anymore. My body was reacting on instinct. I took a step toward the hallway, my eyes fixed ahead, my hearing sharpened, alert. Another sound. Closer. Or maybe, I was just closer now. The door was still there, slightly open, exactly how I had left it. But now, the darkness behind it felt different. Not empty. Not still. Active. I hesitated for a second. Just one. This was the moment. The moment where I could turn around, walk to the front door and leave. No explanations. No confrontation. Just go. And for a brief second, I almost did. But then I heard something that stopped me completely. A sound that didn't belong to a house. Didn't belong to silence. Didn't belong to anything normal. Breath. Low. Uneven. From below. My body froze instantly, every muscle tightening at once, like something inside me had just confirmed what my mind didn't want to accept. There was something down there. And it wasn't alone. I slowly turned my head toward the front door, calculating the distance. Few steps, maybe 5 seconds. If I moved now, if I didn't hesitate, could leave. But just as that thought formed, I heard footsteps behind me. Low. Returning. I wasn't alone upstairs anymore. And whatever was downstairs had just made its presence clear. I didn't turn around immediately. My body wanted to. Every instinct screamed at me to face whatever was behind me. But something inside me held me still for just a second longer. Like I already knew what I was going to see. And I wasn't ready to confirm it. The footsteps stopped, right behind me. Close enough that I could feel her presence without even looking. "Did you hear it too?" she asked softly. Her voice was calm. Calm. Not surprised. Not concerned. Almost curious. Turned slowly. She was standing there watching me again. But this time, there was no softness left in her expression. No warmth. No friendliness. Just focus. Direct. Intentional. I tried to read her face, to find something human in it. Something that made sense. But all I saw was control. Like she was fully aware of everything happening in that house. Including whatever was in the basement. "I think I should go," I said. My voice came out steady, even though my chest was tight. For a second, she didn't respond. She just looked at me. And then she smiled. Not the same smile as before. This one didn't reach her eyes. "Of course," she said gently. But she didn't move. Didn't step aside. Didn't open the path. She just stood there. Between me and the direction of the front door. Not blocking me directly. But not making it easy either. I shifted slightly, trying to move past her casually, like nothing was wrong. Like this was still a normal interaction. But the moment I took that step, she spoke again. "You're curious." It wasn't a question. Stop. My mind raced, trying to find the right response, the safest response. Deny it. Ignore it. Play it off. But before I could say anything, she continued. "Everyone is," she said quietly. Her eyes didn't leave mine. "There's always a moment where they hear something, and they want to understand it." The way she said "they" made something inside me tighten. "Hey, not you. Not people. Hey, how many people come here?" I asked before I could stop myself. Mistake. The moment the question left my mouth, I knew it. 'Cause something changed again. Subtle, but real. Her smile faded slightly. Not completely. Just enough. Not many, she replied. Too quickly. Too simply. I glanced past her toward the hallway, toward that door again. And now I couldn't ignore it anymore. The sounds from below weren't random. They weren't imagination. They were consistent. Live. And then I realized something that made my stomach drop. She wasn't trying to stop me from leaving. She was waiting to see if I would choose to stay. And the worst part was, part of me still wanted to know what was down there. I don't know exactly why I didn't leave. Looking back, that was the moment where everything could have ended differently. The door was right there. The path was clear enough. And yet, my feet didn't move. Because the question was already inside my head. And once it's there, it doesn't let go. What is down there? I broke eye contact with her for a second and looked toward the hallway again. The door was still slightly open, just enough to reveal that same strip of darkness. But now, it didn't feel distant anymore. Felt like an invitation. Or a trap. I just want to see, I said quietly. The moment the words left my mouth, the air in the room shifted again. Not dramatically. Not in a way you could point to. But enough that I felt it. She didn't answer right away. I turned back to look at her. And that's when I noticed something that made my chest tighten. She wasn't surprised. Not even a little. Instead she nodded. Slowly. As if she had been expecting that exact response. Of course you do, she said. Her voice was softer now. Almost relieved. She stepped aside. Just slightly. Not forcing me. Not guiding me. Just allowing. And suddenly, the path to the hallway felt open. Too open. I hesitated again. But only for a second. Then I moved. Each step toward that door felt heavier than the last. The silence followed me, wrapping around everything, making each movement feel louder than it actually was. My breathing slowed again, controlled without me thinking about it. I reached the hallway. The air changed immediately. Colder. Denser. That faint smell I had noticed before. It was stronger now. Still hard to identify. Not something obvious. Just wrong enough to feel unsettling. The door was right in front of me now. Closer than ever. I could see more of the space beyond it. A narrow staircase leading down. Wooden steps. Slightly worn. The darkness below wasn't complete anymore. There was a faint light coming from somewhere deeper down. Yellow. Unstable. Like a light that wasn't meant to comfort. But just to exist. I placed my hand on the door. For a brief second, I thought about turning back. But I didn't. Pushed it open. Slowly. The hinges didn't creak. That made it worse. The staircase was fully visible now, disappearing into that dim light below. The walls were narrow, closing in slightly as they went down, creating a feeling of compression, like the space itself was tightening. And then, I saw something. At the bottom of the stairs. Not clearly. Not fully. But enough. Shape. Waiting. It wasn't just something. It was someone. And they were already looking up. Me. I didn't move. For a few seconds. Maybe longer. I just stood there at the top of the stairs, my hand still resting on the door, my eyes locked onto that shape below. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing, trying to turn it into something normal. Something explainable. But it didn't fit. Nothing about it felt normal. The light at the bottom flickered slightly, just enough to reveal more detail for brief moments, and then hide it again. It wasn't bright enough to show everything clearly, but it didn't need to be. Because I had already seen enough. Figure. Standing, or maybe sitting. It was hard to tell. But it was there. And it wasn't moving. Not at first. My breathing became shallow without me noticing. My body had gone completely still, like any sudden movement could change something. Trigger something. Then the light flickered again. And this time, I saw the face. Not clearly. Not fully. But enough. Too pale. The kind of stillness that doesn't belong to someone relaxed. but to someone waiting, watching. And then, it moved. Just slightly. A slow tilt of the head. Upward. Toward me. My chest tightened instantly, my heart reacting before my thoughts could catch up. That wasn't random movement. That wasn't someone unaware. That was recognition. Knew I was there. I stepped back instinctively, my foot hitting the hallway floor behind me. The sound was small, but in that silence, it felt louder than it should have. And that's when something inside me shifted again. This wasn't curiosity anymore. This wasn't just discomfort. This was danger. Real. Immediate. I turned my head quickly, looking behind me. She was still there, standing in the hallway, watching me. Her expression had changed completely now. No trace of friendliness. No mask left. Just calm observation. Like she had seen this moment many times before. "You see," she said quietly. Her voice didn't carry emotion. No fear. No urgency. Just confirmation. I looked back toward the stairs. The figure hadn't disappeared. It hadn't moved away. If anything, felt closer. Or maybe, I was just more aware of it now. "What is that?" Yes. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded thinner. Less certain. She didn't answer immediately. Of course she didn't. Because the silence was part of it. "It doesn't like being ignored," she said finally. A chill moved through me instantly. Not because of what she said, but because of how she said it. Like it wasn't a warning. It was a fact. And in that moment, I realized something worse than fear. I wasn't supposed to see it. But now that I had, it knew I wouldn't leave the same way. I took another step back. Slowly, carefully, like moving too fast would trigger something I couldn't control. My eyes shifted between the figure at the bottom of the stairs and her. Both of them were still. Both of them watching. And for the first time since I stepped into that house, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. Trapped. Not physically. Not yet. But mentally, completely. "I'm leaving," I said. This time I didn't wait for a response. Turned. And started walking. Not running. Not rushing. Just controlled movement toward the front door. Each step deliberate, steady, as if acting normal would somehow keep everything under control. But I could feel it. Behind me. The silence had changed again. It wasn't empty anymore. It was following me. I reached the living room, my eyes fixed on the door ahead. Just a few more steps. Just a few seconds. My hand tightened slightly as I prepared to grab the handle. And then, heard it. Not from the basement this time. From behind me. Closer. Much closer. A sound that didn't belong upstairs. Shift. Presence. Froze. Just for a fraction of a second. But it was enough. "Don't rush," she said calmly. Her voice was right behind me again. Closer than before. Too close. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see how close she actually was. "I said I'm leaving," I replied. My voice was firmer now. More controlled. But inside, something was tightening. 'Cause I could feel it. Something had changed. Something had moved. And it wasn't just her. There was something else in the room now. I could feel it without looking. Pressure. Presence. The same one from below. But no longer below. My hand reached the door handle. Cold. Pulled. It didn't open. Not locked. Just resistant. Like something on the other side was holding it. Or maybe, something inside wasn't letting me go. Pulled again. Harder. Nothing. A slow breath echoed behind me. Not hers. Deeper. Uneven. I closed my eyes for a brief second, trying to stay calm, trying to think clearly. Panic wouldn't help. Fear wouldn't help. I needed to understand what was happening. But the truth was already forming in my mind. And I didn't want to accept it. Because if I did, there was only one conclusion. I wasn't being kept there by her. Something else had already decided. I wasn't leaving. I didn't pull the handle again. There was no point. Whatever resistance I had felt, it wasn't mechanical. It wasn't something I could force open with strength. It was something else. something I didn't understand, but could feel clearly now. I slowly turned around, and immediately, I regretted it. She was closer than I expected. Much closer, standing just a few steps behind me, watching me with that same calm expression. But now there was something different in her eyes. Something colder. Something that didn't belong to someone normal. "You felt it, didn't you?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer, because I already knew what she meant. That presence, that pressure, that thing that had moved from the basement into the same space as us. "I told you, it doesn't like being ignored," she continued. Her voice wasn't threatening. That made it worse. It sounded like she was explaining something simple, something ordinary. Like this wasn't the first time she had said those exact words. I swallowed slowly, my throat dry now. "What is it?" "Yes." This time my voice came out lower, more controlled. But inside there was tension. A growing awareness that I had crossed a point I couldn't undo. She tilted her head slightly, considering the question. Not confused, not surprised, just deciding how much to say. "It wasn't always here," she said. Her eyes shifted briefly. Not toward me, but toward the hallway, toward the basement. "And it wasn't always like this." A cold sensation moved through my chest, slow and heavy, as her words settled in. This wasn't something random. This wasn't something that just existed. It had changed, or been changed. "Then what happened?" "Yes." Another mistake. Because the moment I asked that question, I gave her exactly what she wanted. Engagement, attention, curiosity. She smiled again, slightly, controlled. "You came inside," she said. "Was. Not long. But intentional. And you listened." The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were closer than before. "And now, it knows you can hear it." That pressure intensified instantly. Stronger, closer. Not just in the room, but near me. I felt it without seeing it. A shift in the air. Subtle distortion. Like something standing just outside my vision. Watching. Waiting. I forced myself not to turn. Not yet. 'Cause deep down, I knew something. If I looked, I wouldn't be able to pretend anymore. "You shouldn't have opened the door," she said softly. Not accusing. Not angry. Just stating a fact. I exhaled slowly, trying to stay grounded, trying to think clearly. "There has to be a way out," I said. My voice wasn't as steady now. Not fully. Because something inside me already knew. This wasn't about leaving anymore. It was about what I had become part of. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she took a step back, giving space. Not blocking me. Not approaching. Just allowing. "Of course there is," she said finally. Another pause. But this one felt heavier. Because I knew what was coming. "There always is." Her eyes met mine again. Direct. Unblinking. "But not the same way you came in." And that's when I realized. Leaving wasn't the problem anymore. The real question was, what would be left of me when I did? I didn't want to turn. Every instinct inside me said the same thing. Don't look. Don't confirm it. Don't give it shape. Because as long as I didn't see it clearly, there was still a part of my mind that could pretend this wasn't real. But that illusion didn't last. 'Cause I felt it. Closer now. Much closer. Not just in the room. Right behind me. The air shifted again, subtle but undeniable. My skin reacted instantly. A cold sensation crawling across my arms, my neck, like something invisible had just moved into my space. My breathing slowed without control, shallow and careful, like my body was trying not to draw attention. But it was already too late. It knew exactly where I was. "You can look," she said quietly. Her voice came from somewhere to my side now, not directly behind me anymore. That meant one thing. She had moved. Or something else had taken her place. I clenched my jaw slightly, forcing myself to stay still for just a second longer, trying to gather control, trying to hold on to something rational before everything slipped. But curiosity, or maybe something stronger than curiosity, pushed me forward. Slowly, I turned my head. Just enough. First, nothing. Just empty space. The same room. The same stillness. And then, I saw it. Not directly. Not fully. But in the reflection. The glass on the table. A distorted image. A shape standing where nothing should be. Too close. My chest tightened instantly. My body reacting before my thoughts could catch up. I turned fully this time, faster than I intended. My eyes locking onto the space where I had just seen it. And for a split second, it wasn't there. Just empty space. Silence. Nothing. And blinked. Once. Trying to force my vision to make sense of what I had seen. And then, it appeared again. Not suddenly. Not violently. Just there. Like it had always been there. And I was the one who had just started to notice. Its outline wasn't clear. Not solid. Like something between shadow and form. But there were details. Enough to understand. Enough to feel it. A head. Tilted slightly. The same way the figure in the basement had tilted. Watching. Recognizing. My body locked in place, every muscle tense. Every thought slowing down as something deeper took over. This wasn't fear in the normal sense anymore. It was something heavier. Something that felt inevitable. You see it now, she said. Her voice was calm again. Almost satisfied. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because now, there was no doubt left. It had followed. Or maybe, it had never stayed down there to begin with. The shape didn't move. Not fully. But something about it changed. Subtle. A shift in position. Closer. Just enough to confirm something I didn't want to accept. Distance didn't matter to it. Space didn't matter. It wasn't bound to the basement. It wasn't bound to the house. It was bound to something else. Something I had already given it. My attention. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. I hadn't just seen it. Had recognized me. I forced myself to breathe. Slowly. Carefully. Like any sudden movement could change something. Trigger something. Make it react in a way I wouldn't be able to control. The shape didn't disappear. It didn't move away. Just remained there. Present, watching. And the worst part wasn't what I was seeing. It was what I was starting to understand. This wasn't an accident, was it? I said quietly. My voice sounded distant. Like it didn't fully belong to me anymore. She didn't answer right away. Of course she didn't. Because now, she didn't need to rush. Now that I had seen it. Everything had changed. No, she said finally. Simple. Certain. I didn't think it would be you, she added. That made something inside me tighten instantly. Not relief. Not confusion. Something worse. Expectation. What does that mean? Yes. She took a slow step to the side, creating more space between us. Not to move away, but to see both of us at once. Me. And it. I didn't choose who notices it, she said. Her eyes moved briefly toward the shape. Then back to me. It chooses who can hear it, who can feel it, who won't ignore it. A cold realization started forming in my mind, piece by piece. This wasn't random. This wasn't just bad luck. There was a pattern. Selection. And once it finds someone, she continued, her voice almost thoughtful now, it doesn't let go easily. My throat tightened slightly. How many? Yes. I shouldn't have asked. But it was too late now. The question was already out. She looked at me for a moment. Long enough to make the silence uncomfortable. Then she answered. Enough. Not a number. Not a denial. Just confirmation. My eyes moved again toward the shape. It hadn't changed position. But it felt closer. Not physically. But present. More defined. Like the more I understood, the more it became real. What is it? Asked again. This time, I needed an answer. Not curiosity. Not interest. Need. She exhaled slowly, as if deciding something. Not whether to answer. But how much? It wasn't always like this, she repeated. Her gaze drifted toward the hallway again. Before, it was just a sound. Was, mull, but heavy. A noise you could ignore. Another pause. Longer. But someone didn't. My chest tightened. I already knew where this was going. And that's how it starts, she said. Quiet. Final. Someone listens. Just a little too long. The room felt smaller again. More closed. More focused. And then, yes. My voice was almost steady. Almost. She looked at me. Directly. No hesitation this time. It learns you. Silence. And once it understands you, she continued, it follows. My eyes shifted again toward the shape. Toward the thing that was no longer just something in the room. Something connected. Something aware. And you, I said slowly. You brought it here. Another mistake. Because the moment I said that, something in her expression changed. Not anger. Not fear. Something deeper. I didn't bring it, she said. Her voice was still calm. But colder now. It stayed. That hit harder than anything else. 'Cause that meant one thing. This wasn't her controlling it. This wasn't her using it. She was living with it. And if it stayed with her, then there was only one reason. It hadn't left yet. It was waiting for someone else. I didn't speak right away. Because now, there was nothing left to ask that wouldn't pull me deeper into something I didn't understand. Every answer she gave didn't clarify anything. It only made things worse. More real. More permanent. I looked at the door again. Still closed. Still silent. But no longer an option. Then I looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't see her as the threat. Not fully. Because now I understood something that changed everything. She wasn't stopping me from leaving. She wasn't trapping me. She had already tried to live with it. And somehow, she had failed. What happens if I leave? Yes. The question felt heavier than all the others. Because this time, I wasn't asking out of curiosity. I was asking for survival. She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes moved, slowly, toward the shape behind me. Not fearfully. Not cautiously. Just acknowledging it. Then she looked back at me. It follows, she said. Simple. Direct. Final. My chest tightened again. Not from surprise. But from confirmation. And you? Yes. Another mistake. Because her answer came too quickly. It stayed. Those same words again. But now, they meant something else. Something clearer. Something worse. Didn't stay by choice. It stayed because it no longer needed to follow. Because it had already attached itself to her. A silence filled the room again. But now, it wasn't just tension. It was decision. I looked at the shape again. It hadn't moved. But it didn't need to. Its presence alone was enough. And for a brief second, a thought crossed my mind. Not rational. Not safe. But real. If it follows, then someone has to stay. My breathing slowed again. My thoughts became clearer. Sharper. Colder. What if I don't leave? Said. The moment the words left my mouth, something changed. Not just in her. In the room. The air shifted. Heavier. More focused. The shape reacted. Just slightly. But enough. She didn't smile. She didn't look surprised. She just watched me. Carefully. Like she had been waiting for that exact moment. You're thinking about it, she said quietly. Not asking. Confirming. I didn't respond. 'Cause she was right. It was. Not because I wanted to. But because I understood something now. This wasn't about escaping. It was about transfer. A slow realization settled in. Heavy. Unavoidable. None of us was not going to leave with it. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She had been waiting. For someone who wouldn't run. I didn't move. Not forward. Not back. For the first time since I stepped into that house, I stopped reacting. And started thinking. Clearly. Coldly. The fear was still there. But it had changed. It wasn't panic anymore. It was understanding. Every piece of the situation was starting to align in a way that felt impossible to ignore. Follows. Learns. Says. My eyes shifted slowly toward her. Then toward the shape. Then back to her again. You knew this would happen, I said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a realization. She didn't deny it. Of course she didn't. I hoped it wouldn't be you, she said. That same sentence again. But now it carried weight. Meaning. Finality. You brought people here, I continued. My voice was steady now. Too steady. Like something inside me had already crossed a line. She didn't answer immediately. But she didn't look away either. I didn't force anyone, she said finally. And that was enough. 'Cause she was right. She didn't need to force anyone. Curiosity did the rest. I let out a slow breath, my mind settling into something I didn't expect. Acceptance. Not of what it was, but of what needed to happen. I looked toward the front door again. Still there. Still closed. Still useless. Then I looked at the hallway. The basement. At the place where it started. And finally, I looked at the shape. Well, watching. Waiting. You wanted to stay with me, I said. She didn't respond. But she didn't need to. The silence confirmed everything. A strange calm settled over me. Not peace. Not relief. Just clarity. Because now I understood something that changed everything. Doesn't choose randomly. Chooses those who notice. Those who listen. Those who stay. And I had done all three. I took a slow step forward. Not toward the door. Not toward her. Toward the hallway. Toward the basement. My body moved without resistance now. No hesitation. No doubt. Because the decision had already been made. The moment I chose to look. Behind me. I heard her exhale. Almost relieved. You don't have to go down there, she said quietly. That was the first time her voice sounded different. Not controlling. Not calm. Something else. Something closer to warning. Stop. Just for a second. Then I turned my head slightly. You didn't have to either, I replied. Silence. Heavy. Final. Then I continued walking. Each step toward the basement felt lighter now. Not heavier. Not forced. Like something had aligned. Like resistance had been replaced by inevitability. The door was still open. Waiting. I reached it. Placed my hand on it. And this time, I didn't hesitate. I walked down. One step. Then another. The light below flickered again. Revealing just enough to guide me. The same narrow walls. The same dense air. The same feeling of something watching. But now, it wasn't unfamiliar. Now, it felt like recognition. I reached the bottom. The space opened slightly. The light steadied. And there, I saw it clearly. Not just a shape anymore. Not just a shadow. But something that had been waiting. For someone who understood it. And for the first time, moved toward me. Not aggressively. Not violently. Just accepting. Like something finding its place. I didn't step back. I didn't resist. 'Cause I already knew. It wasn't taking me. It wasn't taking me. It was replacing her. I don't know how long I stayed down there. Time didn't feel the same anymore. Seconds didn't pass normally. Thoughts didn't come the same way. Everything slowed. Simplified. Focused. I could still hear the house above. Faintly. Her footsteps. Moving. Then stopping. Then, the front door. Opening. Closing. And then, nothing. Silence again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't empty. It was complete. I stood there. Or maybe I didn't. It was hard to tell. Because the feeling of being in one place wasn't the same anymore. I wasn't looking at it now. I was aware of it. And somehow, it was aware of me. Not separate. Not distant. Connected. Above. The house remained still. Unchanged. Normal. Waiting. For the next knock. For the next visitor. For the next person who would step inside, without knowing. Without understanding. Without realizing that some doors aren't meant to be opened, and some sounds aren't meant to be heard. Because once you do, once you notice, once you listen, it doesn't leave. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't forget. It learns. And eventually, wait. And if you ever hear something in a place that feels too quiet, don't try to understand it. Because the moment you do, it will understand you too.